Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the studio. We're here. We're going to be talking about some Harry Potter stuff, movies, story things, and just generally trying to have a good time talking about some stuff.
That's right.
Joe's here.
I'm here. So this is actually kind of fun. This is me and Wyatt's show.
Yeah.
Now, this is not excluding Joshua, but Joshua has other aspirations he's trying to do personally. So me and Wyatt are like, well, what are we going to do?
We got to do something.
We're going to do something. We're going to do a show.
Yes.
That we pre-record and then we release like right away, the same day that we record it. And it comes out on the podcast channel. And it's just me and Wyatt getting geeky about stuff that we're passionate about. Yeah. We each are going to have our own segment. And we're also going to be talking to each other. So it's kind of similar to the podcast at the beginning and end.
Yes.
But tentatively, we're calling this the Wacky Wonderful Show.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see if the name sticks.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, leave a comment and tell us if you don't like the name, what should it be called?
We're not calling it anything Batman related.
Batman.
For those of you in the know. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gosh, we've been having some drama online regarding Batman.
You get drama regarding any fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be clear, this isn't a fandom channel.
No.
Right? If you have a specific thing that you're knowledgeable about, whether be it Lord of the Rings, be it Harry Potter, be it Batman, we're not gonna have the information for you guys. We're gonna have the information for people kind of getting in tentatively.
Yeah. Introducing
some things and having fun with movies and storytelling and filmmaking and things like that.
Absolutely. So we're just gonna start off, since this beginning section is gonna be for the people that already watched the podcast. Really, what I want to hear your first time you watched Harry Potter. How old were you? What did you think? Because we're kind of talking about Harry Potter as the theme of this first episode of the show. Yeah.
So let's see. I was going through movies I hadn't seen that everybody had seen, and Harry Potter was on the list. And it was kind of low on the list. I was like, do I really want to watch this? But I was probably 16, maybe 17. I don't know. But I threw it on the computer or a phone or something, whatever I had at the time, and started watching the first one. And even though the first one is catered to a younger audience, it felt good. It was enjoyable. It was fun to follow. It was fun to watch. And even though the visual effects, weren't like super amazing, whatever, they did a really good job of telling the story and making it feel like a wacky, wonderful land.
Yeah. Now I'll say, so I didn't watch Harry Potter till I was like a late teenager. And I remember when I was watching it the first time, I was thinking, I always heard, like, people that were really into Harry Potter, they're like, the first few films are very childish. And I was like, okay, well, I got to sit through it. But I remember watching the first films and like, this is pretty childish, but gosh dang it, this is fun.
Yeah, it brings the fun. It brings the magic and the whimsy.
The childish whimsy, yet kind of darker storytelling as an underbelly was so much fun to me.
It changes real quick. Yeah. I mean, we're talking movie 3.
Yeah.
Movie 3.
I mean, it gets a lot darker real fast.
We're hitting some darker tones.
But it doesn't open up like, if you're in the fantasy world, you tend to think of Lord of the Rings as a staple. So, but Harry Potter's nothing like that. It's
completely different.
So different, and it's just a different side of the fantasy genre.
Yeah, and it feels a little bit more self-contained because most of the stuff is happening at Hogwarts.
Yes,
and I heard somebody say that almost every Harry Potter movie and story, like book, is they're mystery stories.
Yes,
all of them. I've been reading the books. They're mystery stories. You gotta figure out what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and every single film is like a quest or a mystery to uncover.
Yeah, what's going on? Why are these things happening when, magic people school should be relatively safe?
Yeah.
It shouldn't
every film, it's like,
it shouldn't
it's not
be
safe
more
here.
dangerous than magic school should be.
Well, yeah, that's
right. There's okay. It's
well,
magic
the
school.
freaking in the first, I don't know how many films, and I guess books as well, but the first so many micro bits of this overarching story, the dark magic teacher is replaced every year because the dark magic teacher is bad in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. Or there's something about why they're there or who they are or whatever reason they're they're always replaced.
Yes, yeah.
So
and it's a beautiful story of many stories mixed with an overarching story that actually I'm going to tease a little bit. You're going to get into
I'm going to be talking a little
you're
bit
going to get
about
into the spinal cord
of
the base of this story. Why Harry Potter? Why is he so freaking important? And who is this one that we do not speak of?
Right.
Or whatever his name is. Voldemort.
Voldemort. You did wait, did you actually forget the name?
I know the name Voldemort.
Yeah. We're going to be jumping into that. I'm not going to be diving into why Harry Potter, in the movies is such a boring character.
Well, we can't. It's a good thing this bit I don't think is going on the studio channel because people will eat you alive.
Oh yeah, well, Elijah Wood's acting was really good. Daniel Radcliffe did a really good job as the character.
Which actually, fun fact, he played in a film when he was he was interested in acting when he was like 5, and then he got in a film that came out when he was 10. The producer saw the film and said, they were starting the process of casting for this 2 films for Harry Potter. And they were like, well, actually it was 6, but later they changed it to 2, Warner Brothers. And they were like, this kid Daniel, he's exactly what I want for Harry Potter. So he went up and he found the guy, he found Daniel, and he's like, please audition for this. And then when the director saw him, he was like, this is exactly how I envisioned Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So Daniel is a great actor.
He does a great job acting. The portrayal of a lot of Harry's emotions that are in the book isn't as easily readable.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate quite as well to the viewer as it does from the book. You really get a lot of what's going on inside of his head.
Yeah.
In the book. In the movies, it's, I don't know. He seems a little bit dull.
Yeah.
Not like dumb.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep a straight face on everything.
Well, you know what? Actually, I think it was in either film 3 or 4. Critics were freaking out saying that Emma Watson carried the film because his acting was so dull. But I don't think that's Daniel's fault. I think it truly is the writing of the script. Harry Potter also went through a number of director changes and producer changes. And so it wasn't just the same people the whole time.
Right.
They didn't even know they were going to make past 2 films because they didn't have a contract past 2 films.
Well, and also it's kind of a difficult character to portray on screen because he's trying to be normal as far as normal can be in the wizarding world. He's trying to cope with a lot of stress that a child shouldn't have, and it's easy to keep a straight face, or it's easier to try to keep a straight face on things and enjoy things over thinking about them all the time. He's a complex character, but you don't see a lot of that complexity.
That's
at
true.
least not until, I want to say, later movies. You see a lot more emotions happening from him.
So we'll go ahead and get into the content of this video, but we're going to be back together to finish it off as we kind of talk a little bit more after we go through the content. So I'm going to start. I'm going to be talking about filmmaking, how you can watch films and learn filmmaking from them if you analyze them correctly. And we're going to be looking at a few films from a few scenes from Harry Potter, and learn some filmmaking. I'm also going to go over some basic motivated lighting principles, as well as some basic composition framing for cameras. So this is kind of filmmaking 101. If you think a camera is just putting it up, pointing at something and hitting record, well, some people make movies that way, but that's not the best way or a beautiful way to make them. And if you look at films like Harry Potter, especially the old ones, when they were on film, almost all the action had to be in camera. This CGI wasn't strong enough as it is today. Well, you learn so much about filmmaking and the beauty of it. And I'm going to go through some of that today. So
very cool.
And then Wyatt will come in after me and talk some about the Harry Potter character.
Right.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the video. I am going to be talking about the beautiful filming, the beautiful filmmaking and cinematography that is in the Harry Potter films. Now, if you haven't seen the Harry Potter films, you'll get to see a few scenes that I'll be watching today, but my motivation behind this video is really to say, hey, if you analyze films correctly, if you learn how to get an eye for understanding how filmmakers choose framing, how they choose composition, and how they choose lighting, then you can easily make things incredibly cinematic. There are all kinds of controversies in 2021, 2022 that are... It's all like, if you want to be a filmmaker, you just got to like have a nice camera that can shoot slow motion, and you just slap some LUTs on there and it makes everything good. Well, that's not like for filmmaking. If you want to be a great filmmaker, someone like, I don't know, Peter Jackson, for example, he's one of my favorites, Steven Spielberg, Chris Nolan. If you want to be great filmmakers like this, then you have to understand principles. You have to understand choices. And so I'm going to go ahead and get into some of these. And let's go over first, before we watch some stuff from Harry Potter, I want to go over some basic camera angles. As you see from here, we have 6. I'm going to get into, I think, a total of 9 different ones. And I have 3 more coming after this, but I want to talk about some framing composition that you'll actually see in the scenes that I will point out as we go through these Harry Potter scenes. So before I get into that, let me go through these real quick. The first one we have is a low angle. It's a very humble angle. And if you see from the example, you kind of see that the camera is up above the eye line and it's facing down. This is in film all the time, and it's basically to establish that there's something more powerful that's being observed. There's something greater, more authoritative in the scene than the person that's on camera. The next is the opposite. The next frame, it's the high angle. It's the shot looking up. Now, you might have like an Instagram, you might have your phone, you might be taking a picture for Instagram, and if you are a fan of H3, well, you do like the whole neck thing and freaking just do the up angle. It's the least flattering angle, but it's not just about being unflattering. In classic cinematography, it's actually, if you're shooting up, it's an authority shot. It's a sign of power. It's a sign of dominating presence. And so that's kind of the opposite. If you have characters that are at odds with each other, even in a basic conversation, you'll see filmmakers use this to motivate the tension between them. The next one we have is the close-up. That's kind of just some of the shoulders and the top of the head, so you have some headroom. You have the choker shot. Some people also call it the extreme close-up, but it's a little back and forth. The basic idea is you could either call it an extreme close-up or a choker. That's basically cutting off close to the eyebrows and keeping the chin in the shot. And so there's a little variety of breathing room in that, but that covers the choker or extreme close-up. You also have a medium shot that kind of sits closer to the waist to the top of the head. And then you have the medium close-up, which is kind of mid-body to the top of the head. Now, the reason why there's such a variety of these is because as tension builds in a scene, you might want to get closer to a subject. Or if two people are talking to each other and they're not at odds, but they're talking about, oh, I don't know, maybe they're getting to know each other, as we'll see from a scene from the first Harry Potter film. Ron and Harry meet. Well, they chose close-ups because, well, they're meeting each other. It's intimate. They're in a smaller space, and they're like, well, we're just going to be genuinely ourselves and get to know each other. So that's kind of the concept as to why you would use a variety of these, and you wouldn't just randomly throw in a shot without purpose. Sometimes people start wider, like they might start at a medium shot during a conversation and move to a close-up, and maybe they'll move to even an extreme close-up or choker shot to build motivation, to build tension, or to build closeness with the two characters. And then maybe if they're broken away by someone else coming to the scene, it'll cut back to the medium shot because I don't know, they were broken off between their connection. So there's a lot of reasons for angle choices. Let me get into the last three. We have here a medium long shot, and that's basically from the knees to the top of the head. And then you have a full shot, and that's from kind of the bottom of the feet, the toes, to the top of the head. And then finally, we have a wide shot. Some people also might consider what I'm showing an example here an extreme wide. And that's basically there's an environment around you, and there is something, the focus of the image in frame. It could be a bird flying through the sky, and that would be an extreme wide shot if the bird is the focus, or a person, or a car. It could be anything, but basically the focus is there's an environment surrounding, and there's a thing that is the most important in the image. That is a wide shot. So now that we've kind of established all of these different framing ways, these basic framing ways, I want us to think about, as we go through the couple short clips I have, how they're choosing framing. Are they choosing a medium shot? Are they getting a close-up? Are they getting extreme close-up or a choker? Are they wider? Why are they wider? Are they extreme wide? I know with Harry Potter, they had these elaborate sets and these big classrooms, and so there's a reason why they might want to show that off, and so they might have an extreme wide shot. But let's just think about as we go through this. Before we start though, I want to point out two things really quickly. I mentioned at the top that lighting is incredibly important to filming, to making something look cinematic. I want to give you a little tip here. If you've ever wondered why certain films just look so incredibly cinematic, for lack of a better word, would be because of a basic simple thing that you'll see a lot here, and it's called motivated lighting mixed with shadow side. And if you can understand this principle, you could actually start making your shots on your camera, on any camera, even on a cell phone, if you do it right, look cinematic tomorrow, as long as you start applying these principles. And what I mean by motivated lighting is simply, if you have a light source, like a window or a candle or a fireplace or a lamp, you should make the lighting on your subject look like it's being motivated from that light source. And then what I say by shadow side is, whenever a camera is, like, if you're acting, obviously rarely do you ever look into the lens like I'm doing now. A lot of times characters are talking to each other and they're looking just past the lens, or they're doing a side shot and they're talking to each other. Say there was a light right here. Well, if I'm looking this way, then the light would be hitting this side of my face. That means the camera would be on my shadow side, because the light will be casting shadows on this side of the frame. That's actually a cinematic pro move. If you shoot on the shadow side more than you shoot on the light side, then you're actually going to make your stuff look incredible. And people will be like, wow, looks so amazing, but I don't really know why it looks amazing. Well, simple trick, you shot shadow side, and you'll see that in these clips as well. So let's go ahead and start watching these clips. This is where Ron and Harry meet for the first time.
Excuse me. Do you mind? Everywhere else is full. Not at all.
All right, he's walking in. We have an establishing shot. It's kind of like a medium long shot, but it also can be, well, it's technically knees up. That's a 2 shot, so there are 2 people in the frame, and it's from the knees up. So we have an establishing 2 shot of where they are sitting. But also think of this, we have an establishing shot of where the light source for this train car is for their room. It's the window that is on the other side of them. So right off the bat, they're showing us an example of shooting shadow side because the light source is coming from the window on the opposite side of where the camera is. Let's keep going.
I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. I'm Harry Potter. So it's true. I mean, do you really have the what? The scar.
Now, did you notice that they actually were sitting at kind of medium close-ups, which is kind of below the chest to the top of the head, for their whole conversation until he was asking, do you have the scar? And he was timid to ask him. And when he asked him that, it moved to a close-up. It moved to cutting at his shoulders instead of down like mid-body. So for Ron and Harry, it actually got closer as he was asking a personal question. Also notice they're still on shadow side. They're looking at each other off camera, and the light source is still on the same side that it was between them. So they're still shooting on the shadow side if the light source is on this side. Let's keep going.
Wicked. Anything off the trolley, dears? No, thanks. I'm all set. We'll take the lot. Whoa.
All right. So kind of an interesting thing about this scene is something I noticed. They didn't choose to go back to that wide shot that they opened with when they got interrupted by the lady with the cart who's offering to sell them some candy or whatever. If I was filming this, I would actually probably choose to go back to the wide shot because their conversation is being broken. And so you get away from that close-up. It was just a choice creatively. Sometimes it's harder to analyze exactly every single choice because it's a film. I mean, we're talking about an hour and a half, 90 minutes to 2 hours plus in length to tell a story. And so not every creative decision is perfect, but they do hit it on the nail. Well, they hit it on the head most of the time. And so, but I think maybe they probably used the idea of turning the camera around and showing the cart and bringing in that lady with that pan up. All of a sudden, it's enough of a break from their conversation that they don't have to go to the wide shot to tell the audience what's happening. They probably showed enough of it. So that was a great shot. It was a very simple one, very easy conversation to follow. Let's go to a little bit more of a complex one where we have Harry and what's the blonde kid's name? I forgot his name. The bully. Malfoy. They're practice dueling in front of the whole school. Or at least their class. And they have teachers present. Let's go ahead and watch this. Notice, if you know anything about the 180-degree rule, will kind of follow me on this as well. I'll talk about that in another future video, but if you kind of know about that rule already, pay attention to the framing that they have for the 180-degree rule. right off the bat, I want to just point out the fact they're dueling, and so the camera is at eye level. They're at each other, and also look at the lighting. The motivated lighting from those windows and those fire lamps around them is motivating the light that is being placed on them. I mean, you have a harsh shadow on the side of Harry and Malfoy, or hard light, that because it's coming from those directed beams of light from those windows, and that's the motivation to fill the whole room. And then you have accents of orange, which is really nice. That color difference between that bluish light that comes from, I guess, the sunlight mixed with that tungsten fire candle color. It adds depth to your image, not just depth of field, but it actually adds color depth. So they're still at eye level, all right? We have an establishing shot, and we're showing everybody in the room.
On the count of 3, cast your charms to...
All right, so right off the bat, we have the first authority shot of the scene. It's showing the windows, it's showing where the light source is, and also we have an authority. So this is the teacher. He's like, I'm going to teach these youngsters about magic, and I'm in charge of this group of kids. So I tell him what to do. We have an authority shot. This is basically his, time to shine in the scene.
to disarm your opponent. Only to disarm. We don't want any accidents here. 1.
Notice real quick, it cut to an eye line scene. It got rid of the authority shot when he looks across the way at Snape, because he realizes they're equals at this point. He might even be a little intimidated by him.
2.
Invertex that! Rictus Sempra!
All right. And so obviously they're cutting away a lot because they want to show the action. They choose to do that in wider angles to establish and to show where they are on this long mat. Also, here's another authority shot. I've noticed Harry Potter, especially the early films, use authority and low angle shots extremely often. But check this one out between Malfoy and Snape. See, it's just like Malfoy is like humbled, and Snape's like, "You're making me look bad. Do your thing."
I said disarm only.
Seven Sortia!
Potter. I'll get rid of it for you. Allow me, Professor Snape. Volate as...
Notice this is another like wider but kind of authority shot because it's going to be a humorous moment where he's not able to do anything about it. But according to the snake, at this moment, he has authority.
Sendere!
Also, in between kind of where the snake is created and now, they've been flip-flopping on the 180-degree rule. If you know what that is, it's an interesting choice. I would say it's a tad bit confusing. You kind of lose the sense of where people are in the room if you're not paying close attention, especially with all those kids. So I'm not sure why they chose to do that, but at least from here on out, they switch sides. So Harry was looking this direction on camera towards Malfoy. Malfoy was looking this direction. Now Harry's looking this direction, and the snake is looking this direction. Pay attention to this. Again, between Harry and the snake, we have the authority and low angle shots once again because Harry is showing dominance over the snake. All right. I have one more clip for you before I go, but I just want to point out this was probably a very difficult scene to film. And you might say, oh, there's a lot of people there. Yeah, that's a factor. Oh, there's a lot of action. Yes, that's definitely a factor. I would actually say the lighting in this was very complex and very difficult because they have a lot of stuff to light. If this was a studio and that wasn't actually real light coming through, which I am 99% sure that was all artificial light, you have to literally build a set and then pump in huge, probably RE lights into those windows so that you can illuminate everything you need. It's a very complex system, and then all of these close-ups and wide shots, they had to take time to make sure the light was correct. Also notice when I talked about the 180-degree rule and switching sides of field of direction as they're looking, if you look, the whole time we had Harry had window harsh light on the side that was opposite to the shadow side when he was confronting Malfoy. And then when he switched, all of a sudden that same side was the shadow side now, and he had candlelight lighting the other side of his face. So if you pay attention to these little details, you'll see in production, they had to make these choices constantly, which is actually inconsistent with the lighting from just a few seconds ago in the scene. But they make these choices and they make it subtle to make it look cinematic, so it's pleasing to look at, but also so that it's kind of a masterpiece. Every shot looks well crafted. Every shot could be hung up on the wall. So let's go ahead and go to the last scene I want to show you, and this is a deleted scene that I found on YouTube. So let's take a look at this. So we have an extreme wide shot.
As such, I don't expect many of you to.
We had two extreme wide shots in a row, and that's just to establish the room as a whole. And if you're paying attention, it also establishes where the light source is coming from. So we have tiny candles that's kind of illuminating the kids in the classroom, but the main source are the windows once again.
To appreciate the subtle science and exact art that is potion making. However, for those select few who possess the predisposition.
Notice we have, so far with the professor, we have authority shots over everybody. If you pay attention, like when Malfoy, it was eye level because Malfoy thinks he's got the leg up in this class. He's the best here. He doesn't feel like he's humbled by Snape.
I can teach you how to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death. Then again, maybe...
Now, right off the bat, we have that close-up of Harry, and it goes right to a humble shot because of what he's about to say to him.
Some of you have come to Hogwarts in possession of abilities so formidable that you feel confident enough to not pay attention. Mr. Potter.
This is an intense authority shot.
Our new celebrity. Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?
So far we have more of these wider shots of each other.
Well, let's try again. Where, Mr. Potter, would you look if I asked you to find me a bezoar?
I don't know, sir.
And what is the difference between monkshood and wolfbane?
And we have these individual close-up shots of people observing with other people behind them, not completely, lost with depth of field because it's meant to feel like people just observing. And it's eye level with Hermione because she's confident in her answer.
Pity. Clearly, fame isn't everything, is it, Mr. Potter?
Clearly, Hermione knows. Seems a pity not to ask her.
Silence.
See, we're getting more to the close-ups, even though they're sticking with that establishing shot because the tension is building between them.
down, you silly girl.
The camera's coming in. See that?
For your information, Cotter, Asphodel and Wormwood make a sleeping potion
Close
so
up.
powerful it is known as the Draught of the Living Dead. A bezoar is a stone.
And now we're back
from the
to
stomach of
this
the goat and it will save
very
you from
tight
most
close-up.
poisons. As for monkshood and wolfbane, they are the same plant, which also goes by the name of aconite. Well, why aren't you all copying this down?
And then it breaks that close-up because he addressed the whole room.
And Gryffindors, note that 5 points will be taken from your house for your classmates' cheek.
One last authority shot as he jabs at their whole class. All right. Very good. So those are all the shots I wanted to say. I wanted to point out, I was kind of giving you a play-by-play, but notice with the lighting in that room, it was very dark on Snape because he was standing with his back to the main light source. So they chose to illuminate his face just enough to see it with this more orangish color to represent the candles being placed on his face. And it's a creative choice. I mean, if you're going to have a big old beautiful window, well, the teacher's back is probably going to be to that window. And so you have to come up with another way to illuminate the face and make it look like it is motivated light. So once again, if we watch films like this all the time, then you can actually learn how to become a cinematographer in a lot of ways. Now, there are other things like learning how the camera works and learning even how to work on a set or with people. But the cool thing about it is that if you pay attention, then you actually learn the principles that cinematographers use all the time when choosing how to structure their scene with framing and lighting. So if you like this very much, I want to ask you, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to make a quick transition. We're going to go to Wyatt. He's going to talk about Harry Potter, the character. Now it's time to get into the story itself. So let's go ahead and do this thing.
Well, here we are. We're going to be going through a lot of information today. I mean, maybe not as much as is in my head, but it feels like a lot. We're going to be asking the question that everybody has asked, and that's why must Harry die? Not why did he die? We know why that happened, or even, necessarily how he comes back. But I think the most important question is, why must he die? So I've got some notes here on my phone, and I'm going to be referencing them, probably fairly often, simply because I've written down a lot of stuff, and I don't want to, lose track. So let's jump into the first, just establishing characters. If you're not familiar with Harry Potter and you're wanting this question answered, let's talk about who these characters are. So first, we have Harry Potter, who's the main character of this story, and Voldemort. These are the two main people we're going to be talking about in this question, and they're either your classic hero archetype and villain. And Harry is ultimately the ultimate good of the story, and Voldemort's the ultimate evil of the story. And their interaction from the very beginning, from the first movie, is the reason the whole story happens, and it's critical. And their interactions going on throughout the story is continues to drive what happens with the characters, and not just Harry, but with all the characters, Hermione and Ron and Dumbledore and everybody in the world. Secondly, they established later in the movies Voldemort creates Horcruxes, and if you're looking for a non-spoiler thing here, I'm going to be spoiling a little bit of it. The Horcruxes keep Voldemort's spirit alive, or they keep his spirit alive almost in different iterations, not necessarily keeping his original physical manifestation alive. And when he attempts to kill Harry as a baby, he leaves an unintentional Horcrux in Harry's head where his scar is, and he doesn't know about it. And that's a lot of, that's very important later on in the story. The other important part of that, this establishing story of Voldemort attempting to kill Harry and not surviving, is the fact that Harry Potter's mother sacrifices herself for him. And essentially what happens is the act of sacrificing herself creates a magical protection around Harry from Voldemort specifically. So later in the first movie, we find out that Professor Quirrell, who is a host for Voldemort, can't touch Harry. It burns him, and that's because of the protection that is still on Harry. He and his connection with his parents is also a motivating, driving theme for Harry's character. He doesn't get to interact with them directly until the fourth movie, The Goblet of Fire, where he sees them as ghosts, but he does get to see them in the reflection in, let's see, this picture. Hold on. Oh, I missed that one apparently. In this picture, he does get to see them in the mirror. The mirror shows you what you want and what the deepest desire of your heart, and his is very precious, just wanting to be with his parents. It's the family aspects are lingering motivation throughout the series, and the fact that he doesn't have his is hard for him as a character, especially seeing other people's families. So from there, a lot happens between Harry and Voldemort, both before Voldemort comes back and after he comes back. And a lot of interesting things with Harry himself, because if Voldemort is the ultimate evil and he's left a piece of himself in Harry, it doesn't make Harry evil, but it puts into his mind some of the darker sides of magic and of the wizarding world. And there's a lot in the movies that showcase the good and evil aspects of not necessarily magic, but of humans and of characters. What more than just motivation, but what does good and evil represent? And they do a good job of showing that evil can only exist when there's good, but good doesn't have to exist with evil. Like, good can stand on its own, and that's a lot that happens in a lot of stories. But they do a really good job of showcasing it in this, in that Harry avoids the evil that Voldemort has sort of left upon him. In the Goblet of Fire movie, Harry is taken to the graveyard where he is confronted by Wormtail, the follower of Voldemort. He's trapped, he's restrained, and they bring back Voldemort using various magic items and Harry's blood. Now, they establish in the book that he simply needed the blood of an enemy, and since most good wizards are an enemy of Voldemort, he could have used anyone, but Voldemort specifically asked for Harry because he wanted the protection that Harry's mother put on him. So maybe not necessarily, since the protection is from Voldemort, he wanted it to negate the effects that Voldemort has on Harry so that he could kill him, so that he could, grab hold of him if he needed to without burning his hands off. And it's important for the story, at least, to understand that at this point, Dumbledore has plans. Dumbledore understands that Harry is important to the future if Voldemort comes back. But at this point really solidifies what has to happen in Harry's future. And that's when Dumbledore tells Snape that Harry must die. There's a lot that goes into that. There's also when Harry must die, because he's got to die at a specific moment. Otherwise, they won't be able to destroy Lord Voldemort. Now, the chain of events that prompt Harry's death. So first, Voldemort attempts to kill him as a baby. His mother, Lily, dies, which casts magical protection on Harry. Voldemort comes back, gaining that magical protection, and then Harry must die as well to destroy the Horcrux. So if all the Horcruxes aren't destroyed, Voldemort can't be killed. And by the end of the last movie, they've destroyed all of them except for 2, I believe. They've destroyed. There's still the Horcrux that is in Harry and the Horcrux that is in the snake Nagini. So what has to happen is both the last 2 Horcruxes have to be destroyed. And I don't know that it necessarily had to happen in a specific order. And now that I think about it, yeah, I think it does have to happen in a specific order. It has to be Harry dies before the snake dies. So in the final moments, Voldemort kills Harry, and he essentially dies. And the curse kills the piece of Voldemort that is lingering in Harry. And that was Dumbledore's plan. Dumbledore knew that had to happen. But he also knew that Harry had to die before all the Horcruxes were destroyed. There had to be at least one left for Harry to be able to essentially survive that blast. When the Horcrux is destroyed, Harry's essentially dead, except that the protection is still on him. Now, the protection wouldn't have mattered if Voldemort didn't have the protection as well. And what happened was there was a link between Voldemort's life and Harry's life, and via Lily's protection over Harry. Since Voldemort has it, since Harry has it, they're linked together, and because of that, Voldemort is essentially a pseudo Horcrux for Harry. And since Voldemort is immortal, because of that tie, Harry cannot die. The Horcrux inside Harry can die, but Harry himself can't, and he's bound to Voldemort, who can't die, and that's why he lives. Going beyond why he actually survives, that mainly answers the question. But also, why does Voldemort die at the end? Because if they're still connected via the protection, shouldn't he live based on the fact that Harry's alive? That's not, the protection isn't like a two-way street. It's protection against Voldemort, protection for Harry against Voldemort. So when Nagini dies and Voldemort is now mortal, and the Elder Wand turns on Voldemort, he dies because they're both mortal. They're at an even playing field, and the protection isn't gonna protect Voldemort. It's not meant to protect Voldemort. I don't know that it would have protected Harry in that instance because Voldemort's no longer immortal. But the way I thought of it, it was more of a two-way street. I've skipped over a lot of my slides because I'm careless. Here's the last one where they're fighting. That's a fun moment. The characters are both motivated by strong feelings. For Voldemort, it's to be the most powerful. He wants to rule the wizarding world. He wants to rule the world in general. And for Harry, as the story begins, he just sort of wants to be regular. He wants to be normal. He wants to not have the attention that's on him, the fame that he has. And unfortunately, he, continues to gain fame as the movies go on. And it seems like coincidence, but it's not. Coincidence doesn't happen in movies. Coincidence is what causes movies to happen. They drive the story. If there's no coincidence, there's no story. So it's just a plot. It's a story device that drives the film. It drives the story. It drives the book. Whatever you're trying to tell. So in the end, when both of these characters with strong motivations clash, the story is trying to show that Harry's motivations in the end are because they're purely unselfish and because he is doing this for other people, to save his friends, to save his family, to save the world. That's the bigger emotion. That's the bigger story, and that's why it wins out. It's not just because he's good. It's because his need to win was bigger than Voldemort's, and that's the ultimate goal. That's why you get a lot of these movies where you have ultimate good and ultimate evil. It's not to show that good always wins. It's to show that a lot of the times the good guys have the better motivation. So that's sort of the end. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it enlightening or it answered your question, subscribe, leave a like, and we are going to move on to the last half of the show. Joe is going to rejoin me in the studio.
And I'm just going to come next to you, man.
Yeah.
So I have a question right off the bat.
All right.
About your section.
Yeah.
So you're saying at a certain point, Voldemort was vulnerable to death and didn't know it.
You still have questions?
Yeah, I do have questions.
Yeah. I thought I answered them all.
Well, I have a couple questions.
All
here.
right.
Shove down slightly.
All right.
Shove down. Shove down. There you go.
Trying to get some good phrasing.
Trying to get that center while I'm over here
half off. Everybody's like, this guy was talking about good framing and everything.
But no. Okay, so explain a little bit more to me specifically so I can ask a follow-up question. Voldemort was unaware that when he attacked Harry, he thought that he was just being protected by his mother's blessing spell.
Yeah.
But when he did it, he didn't realize that his attacking of Harry, trying to kill him, was him giving him part of his soul.
As a baby?
Yeah, as a baby.
Saying? Yeah.
So Voldemort was unaware
he was
Harry?
completely unaware that that's what happened.
And so
his fixation with Harry isn't because Harry's a Horcrux. It's because he couldn't kill him with the instant death unblockable spell. Gotcha. Which is essentially what in the books they explain you can't block that spell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So so this ultimate death spell was rebounded off of a baby and attacked the wielder. And so that's why he's obsessed with killing Harry Potter, because it's like, why couldn't I kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is that this information revealed in the first book, or is this like much later on, like in the films?
I want to say it's pretty early on in the book. In the films, I think it's probably a little bit later that they reveal this information, that her sacrificing herself for him
was such a big deal.
Yeah, they explain it as old magic, and very, very powerful.
Gotcha.
And so, in a world with a hyper soft magic system, where there's no hard fast rules to what magic is and what it can do,
that's another conversation about hard and soft magic.
when you introduce an even more unknown magic, it's like, it just makes it more interesting.
It's almost like a MacGuffin magic.
It's MacGuffin magic. Yeah. No, it really it feels like it. But when Voldemort gets the protection, that's when they're, in his mind, on an even playing field.
Gotcha.
Or not on an even playing field. He's now an immortal who can kill the kid he couldn't kill before.
So he thinks of himself as hot crap, essentially.
Yeah, but what he didn't realize that he's killing a Horcrux, number one.
Which is part of him.
Right. And he is... And so Harry couldn't have been killed by Voldemort, essentially, with any other spell.
Then a Horcrux killing spell. Yeah.
So he's killing the Horcrux, which he doesn't know. The protection binds Harry to Voldemort, who's still immortal, making Harry essentially immortal, or at least can come back from that spell. And then Nagini dies, and now they're both mortal. And unfortunately, the Elder Wand answers to Harry. So
it's all like a mix-up of authority and magic.
Right, and I mean, in a recent book I was reading, the character has to gain. This is a lot of soft magic in this book I was reading, but he has to gain authority over a labyrinth.
Oh,
and so he has to go through, like, saying, oh, well, I was born and raised in this area, so that gives me some authority.
Yeah,
and then it's like the next level is, the people who worked in the labyrinth. He's like, oh, well, I do that same thing. I'm a smith. That gives me authority, and it has to go even deeper to who was there before.
Yeah,
like this guy worked in this labyrinth. It was his workshop, and he's like, oh, well, I'm a student of that guy's heir, so that gives me authority, and then it has to go back even further to the people. It is like, so when you get these soft magic layers, and that, I think that story in particular melds them all together pretty well. There's he has to die at this time.
Yeah.
Before Nagini dies, he has to the spell has to kill the Horcrux. The protection has to bring him back. The Elder Wand, I think, is the loose cannon here. It's the oddball. It's the one you don't expect.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that Harry would have been able to defeat Voldemort
without that Elder Wand.
If the wand hadn't rebounded on him.
That's true, because Voldemort, even damaged, was still pretty powerful against Harry towards the end. And then it was the wand that ultimately failed him.
Yeah.
Left him vulnerable.
Now, I think mortality-wise, towards the end, when he comes back, he essentially physically has the same mortality as a regular human. The original Voldemort, who was destroyed trying to kill Harry, he had advanced his physical ability to extreme levels. But when he's destroyed and his body is destroyed, that all kind of
it's gonzo.
It's gonzo. They explain a lot in the book. Like,
yeah,
they explain like he's a phantom, and he has to inhabit snakes.
Oh, sick.
And they don't live very long.
So he has to inhabit a bunch of snakes.
So he has to go from he's just sort of living in the woods. And then this is where a little bit of coincidence comes in. That's when Professor Quirrell like wanders into these woods way far away from where the story happens, and he happens to get him, and he happens to be a professor at Hogwarts, where Harry is going to Hogwarts. This happens to be Harry's first year.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you believe in fate, fate always wins.
In a world with magic,
Dude,
it's gotta be
soft magic was playing its tune the whole time.
Yeah, there's got to be fate.
There's fate for sure. All right,
And even deeper magic, fate.
Fate, the magic that holds all of us in the balance.
MacGuffins.
Magic MacGuffins.
Don't cite the deep magic to me.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the show. Let us know in the comments what you think about what Wyatt said, about what I said. Tell us if you enjoy this. We're trying to do stuff that we've been wanting to do for a while and figuring out how it fits.
Yeah.
Figuring out how it fits on the channel, how it fits within us.
Right, and I'll get better on camera by myself. I'm really bad by myself.
Well, you freaking are great at conversations.
When I'm on with somebody else and we can just talk, and I know I'm talking to a person and not just a camera. When I'm by myself, I'm like, clear ideas.
Clear ideas.
Things I'm thinking. Things in my head.
Well, that's okay, man. Freaking, we're going to be here for a while, every week, unless something dramatic.
You said dramatic and drastic. We're coming to the end.
Unless something drastic happens, we're going to be doing this every week. So return.
Yes.
Not only watch this, but watch the podcast if you're not already a fan.
Yeah. We're going to try some more Harry Potter stuff. And
for the next few weeks, we're diving deep.
Character details and questions. We're going to be looking into a lot of the stuff.
Absolutely.
Joe's going to be working on a little bit more of the technical side. And, there's a little bit for everybody.
A little bit for everybody.
If you enjoy the beginning of the show and the end of the show the most,
you're here for it.
Skip through the middle.
Skip through it. We have use for the middle anyway.
Yeah, it'll go somewhere.
Yeah. So thank you guys very much. We love you the way that Wyatt
can't think of it.
Loves his freaking phone.
I don't love my phone.
Oh, okay.
I love my mama.
Oh, and your mom's on the phone.
I'll call my mom.
We know you don't like Harry Potter.
Thank you.
Bye.